Welcome here to another edition of Husker Online Headlines. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple. Usually I say happy Friday. It's Thursday. We're coming to you a little early in front of the red-white spring game. Wanted to give the show a little bit more shelf life. Sip, it's going to be a big recruiting weekend for Nebraska. And each week we go through what we think are five major headlines. We're going to talk recruiting later in headlines, but let's get right to the front of the line. Nebraska gets a commitment for the class of 2026 from Millard, or 2025 from Millard North safety Caden Vermaas. He's the first 2025 commit for Nebraska, the first commitment from Millard North since 2008. Sean Fisher, that's going back a few years. Well, let's welcome in Caden Vermaas joining us here on Husker Online Headlines. Caden, first of all, congratulations on your decision.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thankful to be here, and I'm excited to get this show going.
Caden, it must be incredibly exciting. Now, how did it all go down? How did you let the staff know? I mean, how did you activate this?
So last Saturday, I came up here and I talked to Omar and Coach Rhule briefly, and they said they wanted to get me back up on campus for the spring game. And I was telling my dad. I went home this week and I called Omar's. I called him Monday morning and I said, is it possible I could meet with Coach Rhule and you and Coach White and Coach Cooper on Thursday? And I kind of just told him I want to have my family have some questions for you guys and all that sort of stuff. And so I was telling my parents all week, I'm like, this is kind of like Nebraska's just kind of been my dream school. Ever since I've been young, this has just kind of been the spot. I've always just been a huge Husker fan. I mean, had season tickets for years. And last week was one of my first times on the field. Actually at a practice with they were just full contact. It was pretty intimidating to me. So that was definitely a big experience and great thing to be around.
You bet. Caden, how fast has this year come? I mean, because you were up on varsity as a sophomore. You guys had a great freshman class the year before and kind of are this, the foundation of this team at Millard North right now. You got that offer from Mickey Joseph and the previous staff, and it carried over with Matt Rhule, and here you are committed to Nebraska. I mean, when you think about just the last few months, how fast has this come?
It's came pretty fast, but at the same time, I've kind of just relied on the people around me to help get me to where I need to be. I've talked to my brother a lot because he's playing college baseball now at Arkansas State, and he's kind of helped me through this decision. I called Brandon Riley, former receiver, the other day. I was talking to him about maybe a college decision this week because his wife works with my mom at a real estate company in Omaha, and they've kind of just been helping me get through this, and plus my parents too, kind of been the biggest supporters through all this, and just my friends and the rest of my family around me has helped me get through this. So
you attended Nebraska's Junior Day in December?
Yeah, the first one.
What kind of impression did that make on you, and how much has that affected your overall decision?
I'd say I feel more loved with these guys than the last staff. I mean, no disrespect on the last staff, but I just kind of like this one a little bit better. But last staff did a great job. I mean, they started my recruiting and stuff like that, and it carried into this staff because I think just all these new coaches, they seem like they want to be around you, and I've told my dad this too. I want to just go somewhere where I feel wanted. Sure. I told him, let's just forget the football aspect for a second. I want to be able to go sit down at a restaurant with all these coaches and talk just about life with these guys. And I think I can do that. So
when they talk about where you fit, what do they like about your skill set and where do they envision you playing for their defense?
They are kind of thinking me at the nickel. I think Coach White said something about a rover, or when he's mentioned that in one of his press conferences that I saw. But yeah, he was telling me about that's where he kind of sees me at. And also Coach Ed Foley was thinking I could possibly return punts if it was needed. So that's kind of what I've heard.
Did you strongly consider any other schools?
I was pretty good with Iowa and Iowa State, but I just something about Iowa. I never met Kirk Ferentz, and that was kind of one of the things in this decision. I was telling my mom, Coach Rhule, just the first time I ever saw him, he just sat down with me and talked to me for 20 minutes like I was his neighbor. So, I just feel like these guys, no matter what, if I come here, I'm going to be supported mentally and physically and all that sort of stuff. So that's kind of where thought about.
How much did he know about you? I mean, because he strikes me as a guy that when you were talking to him, that you were just like another guy. Like he probably had you pretty well researched, I'd assume. And
yeah, he told me that he looked over all the kids' film that were coming to that day. I think it was me, Christian Jones, Danny Kalen was there, Isaiah McMorris was there, Tristan Alvano, Jalen Lloyd was there, and a lot of other in-state guys. Tyson Terry was there. But he kind of told us that he's kind of just looked over all of our film, and even he told me today, like before all these recruits come in, he kind of like watches our film before they come in to like remind himself of what type of athlete they are and kind of just where they're at and where he can see them going and like the spots they fit best at. So that's what he told me what his research has been.
We're talking to Caden Vermaas, who just verbally committed to Nebraska for the class of 2025 Thursday. Now you're doing MMA this spring. Is that right? What's the thinking behind that, and what kind of carryover do you get to football?
So it all kind of started in 7th grade where I did a boxing class with my baseball team, and we all loved it because the box trainer, Danny Molina, shout out, Skywalker 101 in Omaha. But they, so we did that with our old baseball team, and then it got shut down due to COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And then then the whole YouTube boxing thing got kind of crazy. And then I thought, like, gosh, I kind of just want to see how this goes. And I had both my grandpas were 2 Golden Glove boxers. So
right?
Yeah. So I kind of just thought I just want to see where it goes. And then I thought like boxing would help with footwork and hand speed, and jiu-jitsu would help with like tackling and grappling, all that sort of stuff.
He just became his favorite recruit.
Yeah.
Steve
Former
Sipple,
boxer.
he's a former Golden Glove boxer himself. So I could just see his
Yeah, that was beautiful.
wheels spinning right there as you were going in the boxing details. Have you had any fights?
No, but people have asked me if I think I should fight this summer, and I've considered it, but I think if I were to fight, I'd need more training, so it could possibly be in the summer after this summer, or it could be in next winter.
The training thing's a great idea.
Yeah,
I mean, you won't find anything any tougher than
that. It's like a very mental sport where you got to be super. It's also the conditioning is insane, which I found out, which is pretty hard because I remember some of my conditioning in 8th grade that I did with my football team was pretty hectic, but this one, it's just so much body weight. Yeah. And I, last time I went to boxing in 7th grade, all I remember is like my legs got super tired, but with the amount of combos that are being thrown, my arms get super tired now and my legs. So it's crazy.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Now, as we wrap it up here with Caden Vermaas, latest 2025 Nebraska recruit, you talked to Coach Petito. What did he think? Because it's been a while since the Mustang programs had a Husker. They had a lot of them for a while there coming out of there, a lot of Division I players, and you're the first real high-profile D1 guy they've had there in a number of years.
Yeah, he just told me. I told him, I said, I went to him on Monday and I said, Coach, what would you say if I told you I wanted to commit to Nebraska? He said, well, first I'd tell you congratulations. But he said, you got to be like careful with some of this stuff because there's kids who do get their offers pulled and all that sort of stuff. And I told him, I said, I said to him, I said, just like, let's say 5 years down, I told my mom this too, because she was a little iffy on it, but I said, let's just say 5 years down the line, let's just say this doesn't pan out and I end up not being as good as I want to be. I said, that's on me. I said, I'll take the blame for it. But I said, I truly believe in my heart, this is where I think I need to be and where I want to be. And just, it's kind of been my dream ever since I've been young. So that's kind of just how I've thought about through this whole process.
Perfect.
Are you 16 yet?
Yeah, I turned 16, but when I had my offer, actually I was 16, but I wasn't driving yet. So I'd just be like sitting after practice, like waiting for my dad to come pick me up.
With an offer in your hand.
So
well, you got 2 years now. Enjoy your, you're going to have a big target on your back.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're going to enjoy. Now you were a little under the radar last year. Now you're going to be Caden Vermaas, the Husker recruit.
Yes, sir.
You ready for that?
Yes, sir.
It's
Absolutely.
going to be fun. Well, hey, congratulations to Caden Vermaas, latest commit for 2025, joining us here in studio for Husker Online Headlines. All right, headline number 2. We now know the spring game format, and it's going to be a football game, Steve Sipple. We're going to see tackling, live quarterbacks, true quarters. I mean, the only tinker they're going to do is have all the offensive linemen in gray jerseys, which will allow them to kind of be flexible with those linemen. And, some of those second and third team unit guys are going to get a lot of reps on the offensive line. So, in terms of spring games, this will be as interesting as one as we've seen in a while.
I hate to say this kind of, but sometimes it feels like Rhule's a gift from God. I mean, it's just like everything so far. Yeah, I mean, it's really refreshing. I said it the other day on our show, our other show, our radio show. It feels like he fits the culture better than Frost does. Frost's spring games were awful. I mean, they're just awful. And now here we are with Rhule, and he said, listen, we got to play a game. We got to get better.
Well, we didn't even like get a shoot and go into practice very often either.
Right. Rhule says we got to get better. We're going to hit. I mean, we're going to – in Rhule, he really has this old school bent to him. I mean, he really does. Like when he says somewhere along the line, we can't play football anymore. The people decide we can't play football anymore. Well, we're going to play football. It's fun. He goes, it's fun for these kids.
Well, you think about it, he's a 1990s Penn State guy.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about those teams that he played for, they were tough. They were blue collar, Joe Paterno, the way they played football back then. And that's how he coaches. I mean, he's a physical teacher of the game. And just, it's a simple concept, but having your quarterbacks live, you learn so much more about your team.
Well, they got to learn about their quarterbacks too. And it helps that they have 4 scholarship guys available for the spring game. They're going to have 6. Well, depending on
Jack Wokey.
Yeah. If I guess 5, then if you add the walk-on Jack Wokey. But, they have 6 guys on scholarship. 2 of them won't play. But what I'm saying, Sean, is they have a wealth of depth at quarterback, which helps in that discussion. I mean, if you had 2 scholarship guys, you might not have them get hit, right?
Yeah, and those 4 scholarship guys, I'm interested in all 4 of them.
I am too.
Like, I want to see Richard Torres throw it around. I want to see Chuba Purdy, what he looks like, and obviously Harburg, and we definitely want to see Sims. So there's a lot there. And the fact that QB run game is going to be live, because how many times in a game where they just touch the quarterback with one finger and they blow it dead? Like Isaac Gifford said, I don't ever remember hitting a quarterback at Nebraska in practice until like right now. He goes, when Adrian Martinez is here, we had to be 3 yards away from the guy.
Is that something? So yeah, it's kind of, I mean, just your coverage, my coverage, everybody's coverage of the scrimmage will be much different now. You're going to have to lock in, Sean. I mean, there's been spring games where you really didn't have to lock in very hard, At
halftime, it was over.
Yeah. And now there's a lot to watch, which we'll go through as the show progresses. But yeah, the quarterbacks probably starts with the quarterbacks. You want to see what Harburg looks like. I want to see what he looks like throwing the ball. I mean, I'm convinced from what I've seen on Twitter, video, etc. He can run it. Can he execute in the passing game? And then what does Sims look like? Because he could be QB1 this year. I mean, it's either going to be Jeff Sims or Casey Thompson as your QB1. So what's Sims look like?
Like Harburg, you wonder, like, was the reason why he didn't do well? Did he not get much of an opportunity, lack of reps, lack of development, and now he's getting reps and development, and he's
it might be that it's
or just a different system.
Yeah, without seeing, different system could be, and just a different opportunity. He's getting an opportunity. He's getting reps.
Well, then
he's getting reps. I mean, I don't think he got meaningful reps last season.
He was on scouts, and
you get meaningful. You do get meaningful reps to a point on scout, but you're not running your own offense, and the coaches aren't evaluating you as such.
Well, then the crowd on Saturday too, just for Matt Rhule and that moment, just we're talking about Frank Solich, but there's just so much going on.
Rhule had a great answer to your question though, Sean, which was, this isn't about me. I mean, Rhule said, this isn't about me. This is about the players. I don't want this to be about me. It should be about the players, and it should be about Frank. Rhule's got a great attitude. I mean, it is to a large degree about the leader of the program coaching his first spring game, but Rhule's response to that is very appealing. Look, I don't want this has to be about the players. And then of course, Frank Solich coming back,
and they got to get better.
Exactly. There's so much he said in his pre-spring game press conference. It was appealing. That might have been the thing that was most appealing to me. You know what he said? We're treating this as a work day. I mean, this is a work day. He's a gift from God. I mean, he fits the culture extremely well. Now, we'll see how it all works. you can't really truly say he's a gift from God until you see.
We're still in the honeymoon.
Until you see autumn Saturdays. Oh, we're full blown honeymoon. But I mean, he's doing good things on the honeymoon. I mean, his honeymoon, he's planned out his honeymoon really well.
He's going down in the lobby and getting bagels for his wife in the morning.
Yeah,
still.
he's doing everything.
He's in the good spot of it.
He's got it going.
Wait till about week 5 of the season, and we'll
might be a little different.
Get a better feel. All right, let's go headline number 3, the recruiting weekend. And let me tell you, it's getting bigger by the day. And I'm excited. We're gonna have a chance, Sip, to talk. Yes. I called you Sip, by the way. I didn't go with Steve this time.
That's fine.
To talk to a number of these recruits on Recruit Spotlight here on the Husker Online channel on Saturday, and we'll drop those on Saturday, Sunday over the weekend. But Brandon Baker back again, the number 1 offensive lineman in California, number 1 tackle in the country. Aiden Brayland, the number 1 defensive lineman in California, the number 6 overall defensive lineman in the country, will be here. Dylan Williams, one of the top linebackers in all of California from Long Beach Poly. Carter Nelson's back. Kamar Mathodi back here in town. You'll have a group of Texas guys here too. Peyton Morgan and Micah Sanya, Commit Gibson Pyle. We'll get a chance to talk to Kamir Prescott from Philadelphia. He'll be here on a Recruit Spotlight. So a number of guys that will be making their way up. We're going to get a chance to visit with 5 of these guys though this weekend here on Recruit Spotlight.
I mean, there's a lot of these guys I'm interested in. Aiden Brayland plays with Brandon Baker at Mater Dei. Aiden Brayland, I think you mentioned the number 6 defensive lineman in the 2024 cycle, according to the On3 industry rankings. Now he just got back from the Miami spring game. There's obviously, Sean, there's a ton of competition for these guys. I mean, let's put it this way. I'm just talking about one here, Aiden Brayland. Mario Cristobal offered Aiden Brayland when he was in the 8th grade. Cristobal was at Oregon at the time. Of course, now he's at Miami. But yeah, I mean, Dylan Williams is a big time recruit from Long Beach Poly at 25.5 tackles for loss last season. I mean, he had 25.5 tackles for loss
time program
in a season. In the last 2 seasons, he has 37 tackles for loss in a big time program, Long Beach Poly. Teams are all over him. I mean, so, they're here. That's
like this weekend with these guys coming up here. We'll look back at these names in like 4 years and see them on draft weekend.
You absolutely will.
Like when we're watching the draft in like 4 years from now, 5 years, whatever it will be, you're gonna be like, yeah, that was pretty cool.
I'd say those 3 guys we just mentioned have a great shot.
And I think Nebraska fans naturally are pessimistic a little bit about it all. Like, oh, these guys aren't really interested. I can tell you Brandon Baker is interested in Nebraska. Nate Frazier is. He's not in this weekend, but they've done a really good job, at least, of getting him there to spend time around the program. And the Baker interest is real. His brother, Gary, will be with him, Gary Baker Jr., and the mom and dad, Gary Baker Sr., as well as Francine Baker. So he'll have his whole family here again with him. And then he's going to come back for an official visit later in the summer or the regular season.
Sean, I just think if it's realistic at all to get these very high profile athletes, you got to take a swing. I mean, if it's realistic at all. No, yeah. I mean, when you talk about a kid like Dylan Williams, big long shot. I mean, he's already established his top 7. Nebraska's not in it. So you got to change his mind. I mean, you got to make a big impression late, like they did with Baker. I mean, when Brandon Baker came here the first go around, he probably wasn't all that serious about it. He got serious because he saw it and something clicked with him.
Well, think about Jacob Smith. We talked to him the first time before
Jacob Smith's a good example.
The visit even started.
Yeah.
Like he got in Thursday and we scheduled him for a Recruit Spotlight Thursday night. So we kind of were ahead of the visit, and you could tell, and he wasn't really feeling it yet. Mm-hmm. We talked to him now after 2 full visits, totally different tone.
Brought his mom with him last time. I mean, see, that's what you're hoping. And I think just the more high profile student athletes you get on your campus, the better. Even if even if the kid's a long shot, he'll go back to his school and talk about Nebraska. And maybe, just maybe, what he says will click with somebody else. So just I'm all about. Well, I'm very supportive of just getting these guys here. A lot of them are going to be long shots. And the other thing, Sean, I don't think we can drive this point home enough. Everything's getting sped up. You got to get them here in the spring.
Yeah, Nebraska, chew on this stat for 2024. After the latest additions, there will be 40 players that have visited campus in March and April with scholarship offers.
40.
That's like 40 official visits.
Yeah, they're unofficial, but they're like official.
So you kind of put it in those terms. You get 56 official visits a year. Well, they haven't used any yet, and they've already had 40 players come to campus with offers
on quote unquote unofficial visits. I mean, to put it in perspective, I told you, I was telling you the other day, there's one SEC coach, an assistant coach at a prominent SEC school that had 400 plus unofficial visitors during their 4-week spring period.
And obviously not all offer because there's no, but just different recruits. And Nebraska
400 plus.
I mean, we try to do our best to keep up with the numbers. And I mean, you think about April 22nd, we have 17 kids at the spring game locked in on our list. There's more that we're not, but then that March 25th weekend, Nebraska brought in well over 22 guys that we confirmed. So there's 40 guys. And if you're not doing this, it's really tough. Mm-hmm. Like how are you building your class? And, what are you doing? And Nebraska's taking a swing at these guys. What's interesting is locally, they're not in it as well with some of these, Bellevue West players like Isaiah McMorris, Devon Hall, both wide receivers, both 4 stars now and on 3. Neither one is really, you don't feel good about Nebraska for either one of those guys. Daniel Kalen's going to Missouri, their quarterback. Mm-hmm. Caleb Pike from Omaha Central, you kind of wonder where that sits right now. Mm-hmm. They just got Ashton Murphy's commitment from Elkhorn South. Eric Ingwerson, the Papillion La Vista tight end, nephew of Timmy Green, our good friend. Remember Timmy and Mikey Green? He's committed to Pitt, but I think he'll be here for the spring game too this weekend. So we'll see if he shows up. So there's a lot there in-state wise. They got to get Carter Nelson though. And I like their chances with Carter Nelson.
Yeah, it's a battle. I mean, this is, Sean, you got to kind of zoom out in a lot of these discussions. I think we get a little bit myopic sometimes. Nebraska hasn't won in a long time. I mean, they haven't
been to a bowl in a long time.
Right. They haven't won big in a long time. I saw that stat near 3-2-1 today where Nebraska's since 2003, they've been in the top 5 1 week. In the last 20 years. In the last 20 years, Nebraska has been in the top 5 for 1 week. Now, Sean, zoom out. Why do you think they're having a little trouble recruiting, getting these guys from Bellevue West or wherever? That has an impact.
And the fans still demand that they recruit at the level
when Frank was the coach. Right, Frank's coming back.
That
hasn't. There's an impact. All that losing has. Why do I even have to say that? It should be self-evident, right?
Well, you think about it's been 7 years since they've gone to a bowl.
2016. It was 2016. They went to the Music City Bowl and got.
Caden Vermaas was just in this chair. He's 16. Mm-hmm. He'd have been 9 years old the last time Nebraska played in a bowl game.
There you go.
Yeah. My daughter's 10.
Yeah.
She wouldn't remember that stuff,
right.
It
has an impact.
It does have an impact. Let's move on. You mentioned Frank Solich. That takes us to headline number 4. Frank Solich will be making his return to Memorial Stadium to Nebraska. He'll be honored. They'll have a special dinner for him Friday night. A number of close friends in the coaching industry and former players will be in town for the dinner. I know you've talked to Barry Alvarez. He's coming to town. Lance Leipold's going to be to town.
Yep.
Jimmy Burrow.
No, Jimmy won't be.
Jimmy's not coming.
No, he's not. He has his son, Joe Shiesty.
Some kid named Joe.
Yeah, has an event for his foundation in Baton Rouge that is on the same day, and it's been planned for a long time. So Jimmy feels bad. I texted with Jimmy today. He feels bad, but on the other hand, he has a prior event. Anyway, Yeah, Frank, in keeping with kind of Frank's personality, will have an invite-only dinner on Friday night. And I think we're talking 30 or fewer people, but there'll be a reception after the dinner, which will involve hundreds of people. So it'll be a great time for Frank.
And Barry Alvarez, you'll have more on that, but you caught up with Barry?
Yeah, Barry was great. Barry and Frank were teammates at Nebraska in 1965. Barry was a sophomore linebacker, and Frank was a big-time player. I mean, Frank was a fullback for Nebraska, all Big 8. People forget, but that team was 10-0 in the regular season. They lost to Bama in the Orange Bowl, and Frank, rushed for 200. He rushed for 200 yards against Air Force late that season, the first Nebraska back to run for 200 yards. Frank was a team co-captain. They only had 2. Frank was one of them. Barry has a really high regard for Frank. They're both Pennsylvania guys. And they both coached in high school at the same time.
Lincoln Northeast and Lincoln Southeast.
Yeah, Frank was the head coach at Lincoln Southeast, and Barry was an assistant at Northeast. Barry's respect for Frank is through the roof. I mean, in fact, when I talked to Barry the other day, I texted him, and he texted right back. I mean, 10 seconds, and said, "Look, this is interesting that you texted because I was on a long walk down in Naples, Florida, where he lives." He said, "I was on a long walk thinking about Frank and thinking about all he meant to Nebraska. So this is a perfect time to do this interview. Let's do it." So it was great. We'll run that column Friday night.
Yeah, it should be a great weekend. I mean, the number of players that are going to be back from all generations. I mean, Frank Solich started coaching at Nebraska in the 70s.
Yeah.
I mean, so like you think about all the different players he's coached all the way through the 90s and early 2000s. I mean, we asked Keith, man, what former players are coming back? The media, he's like, all of them.
Yeah, I mean, Frank was much of my dealings with Frank was when Frank was a running backs coach, and he was regarded as maybe the premier running backs coach in the country. And Tom turned him loose as a recruiter on the East Coast and sent him into a lot of places that are hard to recruit, like New Jersey. Well, Frank recruited Irving Fryer. Frank recruited Mike Rozier. That's pretty good, right? First overall pick and a Heisman Trophy winner. Not bad.
Amon Green.
Yeah, a long line of guys Frank recruited. Those are the 2 premier ones. But so Frank was a premier recruiter, premier running backs coach. And then, by the way, little known fact, I didn't know this. When Barry became the head coach at Wisconsin in 1990, he tried to hire Frank as his offensive coordinator and thought he had him. And he hired Dan McCarney as his defensive coordinator. He thought he had McCarney as defensive coordinator and Frank as offensive coordinator. Frank flew home, and Tom Osborne talked him out of taking the job. So that would have changed things. Barry thought he had him. So very interesting.
All right, let's go. Final headline. What is next for Nebraska, Matt Rhule, after the red-white spring game? A lot of things to keep track on. Recruiting picks back up again.
Yeah.
The recruiting evaluation period actually started this week. You get 168 days that your coaches can use on the road, divided by 10. So you can average essentially 17 days per coach. Head coaches can't go out. So you'll get a lot of these coaches out from now and all the way through Memorial Day, May 31st.
Okay.
They'll be out on the road probably like 4 days a week, 3-4 days a week. You're usually not out 5 days a week very often in the spring. But for Matt Rhule, he's not going to be on the road. What's he going to be doing? He's going to be having his kind of player exit meetings, finishing up this roster. And that's not going to be easy.
No, because right now they're at 98 scholarships. And as you wrote it in your 3-2-1, they got to get down to 82 or 83. Some of that will be players who take what you call
the early
retirement package, where they get their full scholarship money,
stipend, everything.
But they're not on the team anymore. So you said you think maybe half the 15 or 16 may take that.
You just wonder. I mean,
and then some of the other ones will go in the portal, right?
And one of our really good users on HuskerOnline, Sugarland Husker.
Yeah, Sugarland.
He's
great.
He's a really good, knowledgeable poster, and he brought a point up that you cannot use this rule evidently on players that transferred to Nebraska.
Oh,
so like a player that came here from, like, let's just use Tommy Hill.
Okay.
Like they can't do the forced attrition on a guy like that, according to this rule.
Not that Tommy Hill is using as an example.
I'm just trying to use like or Casey Thompson or any, like there's some stipulation about how they can. So there's going to be some tough conversations and some tough decisions for all these kids. And that's going to heat up next week. There's only been one portal entry for Nebraska, and it was kind of a surprise because we thought he was going to come back, Alante Brown.
Mikey Pauley.
Mikey Pauley is a scholarship baseball catcher.
Okay.
But he had football offers as a quarterback from KU and K-State.
Yeah.
Turned football offers down at quarterback from those schools to come here and play catcher for Will Bolt to get a shot at quarterback.
He'll have I bet he has some big time college football interest from people though. Alante Brown certainly will. I mean, but yeah, there's got to be more news to come.
Oh yeah. Monday. I mean, we have a great deal right now that runs through Sunday, 4 months access for $10 on Husker Online right now. You're going to want to get on that before Sunday because there's going to be a lot going on.
A lot.
And you talk about the transfer portal, the roster movement, coaches on the road recruiting, more recruiting visitors. We've been busy these last 5 weeks with recruiting and spring practice. There's going to be it's going to go all the way until like late June. Then it will go dead again in July. So it's buckle up.
Yeah, it'll be fun. I mean, we want there to be news.
Oh yeah.
I mean, sometimes you think, oh God, the spring game's over. Now there's not going to be nothing. No, it doesn't work that way. There'll be plenty. Yeah. But I'll take some time off in July, Sean, probably get out.
Take the motorcycle out. Yeah. We usually try to give ourselves some time in July, obviously, but yeah, it should be great. Make sure on HuskerOnline.com we'll have full coverage this weekend. Nebraska baseball is at Iowa. Big series for Will Bolt, but spring game coverage. And good news, we will have a post-game live show around 6:00 is what we're shooting for, Steve, for the post-game show.
Okay, Sean.
So that's your deadline.
That's my deadlines. Yeah. So plan on 6:10.
then we're rolling right into Recruit Spotlight. So it's if you want to window watch us from the Haymarket, you can watch us up here late working on Saturday night.
Yeah, it wouldn't be all that riveting to see us in here, but there'll be a lot going on in terms of interviews, but it won't be that exciting to watch.
Well, that wraps it up here. Make sure on HuskerOnline.com. If you're not a subscriber to us here on YouTube, make sure you like and follow us here. You can also catch this show on the Husker Online podcast channel. For Steve Sipple, I'm Sean Callahan.